Welcome to Root Cellar, an inquisitive look into sustainable food preservation and ancient wisdom for the modern world. My journey into food preservation began humbly. I wasn't entirely sure what fermentation was until I started doing it myself. Like many others, I became caught up in the trend of consuming kombucha, but somewhat disillusioned with the price tag. It was enough of a deterrent to look into brewing it myself. I found a friend willing to lend me a SCOBY, a set of simple instructions, and made a list of basic brewing supplies. The process went so smoothly, and I had such a sense of pride in accomplishing the task at hand. It was a great feeling, and I knew it had sparked an interest in fermentation in general. For me, fermentation and ancient food preservation techniques demonstrate the ingenuity of the human spirit. They show how people can get creative when they need to. The notion of fermentation bodes well for the future of humanity. It gives you this optimistic feeling that we are a useful species with problem-solving skills and the ability to overcome. From kombucha, I went to ginger beer, ginger ale, kimchi, sauerkraut, mustard, hot sauce, apple cider, hard apple cider, primitive fruit wines, and ales. All sorts of fermented vegetables of any kind and anything I could possibly think of. There was plenty of failed experiments and things gone wrong. I put so much work into a wild yeast hard apple cider, but I think I let it get a little too hot during the fermentation process. It had a muskiness I'll never forget the smell of. So I grew up doing a lot of hunting, a lot of big game hunting, bird hunting, hunting by horseback in the mountains, staying in an outfitter's tent, and that was something that was introduced to me at a young age from my father. And I always appreciated the bonding aspect, the outdoors, learning about nature. But what never connected with me with that style of hunting was, I think it was fashionable to primarily be trophy hunting. And so, yes, the meat was used, but not much beyond that. And I think it was, primarily for the sport, which never ever interested me. But through my food foraging, my fermentation, my ancient preservation technique journey, I've reconnected with hunting after a number of years off, and it's been a bit of a bonding experience where I started to process the meat myself, and that was the part that helped me engage and appreciate the process a little bit more. And it started with us making deer jerky and sausage and patties and then perfecting those recipes, which then led us to trying large batches of bone broth. And a couple years ago I even made an attempt at tanning a moose hide, which is a really challenging thing to do that requires numerous steps and a lot of experience and wisdom. So I made lots of mistakes, but I enjoyed the process so much. One type of food preservation that I think I kind of have been interested in because of that, my experience hunting, is pemmican. Now, pemmican is an old indigenous food preservation method that is kind of coming back into trend right now a little bit, I think, because how effective and innovative and perfect it is. So essentially what pemmican is you take a dried meat, almost like a jerky, maybe a little bit more so, dried out a little bit more than jerky even. You take a fat source from the same animal usually, and you take berries and you combine them, and together it creates this superfood in a way where it's, you have your protein, you have your fats, and you have your nutrients and your flavor from the berries. So with a really long shelf life and a flexible recipe, something that you can take it with you unrefrigerated, that can last for potentially years. And so I didn't get around to making pemmican, but I've been studying it, I've been learning about it, and I think next hunting season, that's one of my big goals, is to, if I'm able to harvest a deer, for example, I hope to take some of that meat and to put it in the smoker, dry it out, and that fat that we traditionally kind of just wasted, really, that tallow it's called, is I'll be able to process that kind of equal parts, and then find some local berries, edible berries, that I can mix into that and try to make this pemmican. I think that's kind of the next step, and that's exciting to me, and it's helping me use more of the animal. It's helping me learn, the primitive survival methods of people in this area used to do, and it's a truly local food through and through that stands up the test of time. And maybe I think as food security becomes an ongoing issue, pemmican, you just realize how much of a innovative idea it was to put that together, and I'm really excited about that. So maybe in the future I'll be able to post a pemmican episode down the road if we're able to continue on with this. But yeah, that's what's on the horizon. I'm really, really, really excited about pemmican, and there's a lot of great YouTube tutorials with people doing it with different kinds of meat, with wild game, with store-bought meats and beef and pork and things like that. It's super flexible, and I think that's what makes it so cool. So pemmican, check it out. A place I found really inspiring for our food preservation and gardening journey is Salt Spring Island. It's a place we've been a number of times now, and my partner and I just find it's a food sanctuary. They grow everything there. It has the best farmers market I've ever been to, but not only that, everyone participates. So it feels like everybody there has a small parcel of land that produces. So you'll stay at a place, and just down the road you'll see a sign, the one neighbor's selling fresh eggs, the next neighbor's selling milled flour, the next neighbor's contributing something else, and everyone, by producing something and then bringing it together at a farmer's market, they have this bountiful resources that is just there for everyone, and it's neat to see. It's kind of inspiring to see what it's like when so many people come together to produce.
So this is chamomile goat's milk, and it smells awesome, and I think it's going to be really great for our baby's skin since she's got a little bit of a rash on her arms. And then I've got an orange scented one, and it's not overpowering, and it's really it's supposed to be invigorating. I think it'll be good in the morning, like a cup of coffee to wake you up. But of course, the best one, lemongrass lime. Smells so fresh.
that farmer's market, one thing we like to do when we go there is, instead of going out for dinner one night, we'll take $100 and we'll go to the farmer's market and we will buy food that we can make our meal that night. And it's always better than anything we ever find at a restaurant. And we end up taking a bunch of it home with us and have a ton of different resources. We'll usually come home with a lot of variations of sea salt that's made there, and hot sauces and preserves and all sorts of cool stuff. So I think it's important to stay inspired, even if, you know, we're a huge agriculture center here in Lethbridge, but I think it seems like less and less people are participating in the actual growing and the producing of food. And I think when you go somewhere like Salt Spring Island, it's the polar opposite, and you know, you're able to take that away with you and hopefully inspire your own community, because we do have a lot of resources here still. You know, we have a lot of sunny days. Even we're on and off again with drought right now, but we have a lot of sunny days. We have a lot of large yards that could be utilized better, and I think it's promising. And you know, hopefully that's one thing that I can share is a love and appreciation for that DIY sort of farming and producing on a small neighborhood plot of land. So hopefully we'll include a few shots of Salt Spring Island here and inspire you to look around and you know, take something from else that you want to see at home and bring it with you. So next, I'd like to talk about a few of the things I learned through the process of doing these episodes. The number one thing with fermentation that you risk, it seems to be, is your time. A lot of fermentation takes time, and therefore the experiment can be a little bit of a bummer when it doesn't work out. And there's things that are going to go wrong. That's just the nature of it. That's how you learn, and you have to be willing to fail and be okay with that. And like I said, keeping a bit of a brewer's log or a fermenter's log, you know, writing down your process, your ingredients, your timelines, your dates, that really helps you when things do go wrong to look back at it and to assess what you could do differently next time. So I would say giving yourself permission to fail, risking that time. You know, sometimes when you have more than one fermentation on the go, that helps you. Then when something does go wrong, it's not such a terrible feeling, and you have something else to fall back on. You don't put all your, you know, metaphorical eggs in one basket. So I'd say that's a big thing. The cost of fermentation is relatively small, so that's not a huge process. The hours you put in is not even that bad. It's the time. It's, you know, that from 3 days to years you could potentially ferment things, and that's where the gamble lies. And so just know that going in, that you might have some failed experiments, and you're going to have to wait and be patient, and that's might make you a better person. It might be part of the process. Another thing I'd really stress is keeping your areas clean and not introducing bacteria. So it seems tedious and it might seem unnecessary, but really, you know, getting all your ingredients set out before you start, sanitizing everything, cleaning it, and gloves. If there's times when I'm doing kimchi and making hot sauces where you'll read different recipes online that it's recommended you wear gloves and PPE. First couple of times I thought that was unnecessary, and you'll feel your hands burning for days afterwards, and it's completely uncomfortable, and just slipping on a pair of gloves and off a pair of gloves is so much easier than having to deal with that on the back end. So the risk is real. So wear PPE, keep your area clean, and be okay about losing that time, because that's part of the learning process. If you have 5 different things fermenting at once and one doesn't work out, it's not going to break your heart. So I highly recommend that. Let's talk about my future goals fermenting and in food processing and production. I'm really interested in primitive beers and wines right now. And so that means, making beer and wine outside of the industrial agriculture industry and using wild yeasts that come with the ingredients. So if you're making a wild ferment hard apple cider, for example, you use the yeast that already exists on the skins instead of adding a traditional brewer's yeast. You have far less control of the alcohol. They usually lower alcohol drinks anyways, and the line gets a little blurrier between a fruit beer or a fruit wine, and it's primitive, and it's how people have done it for thousands of years, and how we started fermenting those kind of drinks in the first place. So I'm really interested in primitive wines, primitive beers. There's a bit of a movement happening. I think I was reading even in Denver that there's a primitive brewery. So it's all those wild yeasts and things like that, which is exciting. It encourages foraging more and encourages you to use what's in your region as opposed to just buy things and add it, which you can do anywhere in the world. And I think that's what's less interesting about the commercial beer and wine industry to me, is that you can make that Czech Pilsner anywhere in the world now. It used to be a regionally specific drink, but now because you can just order those ingredients and make it in the lab, it's not regional anymore. But by finding ingredients in your area and incorporating that into your beer and wine making, you are making a native local drink that's unique and special. And to me, that's really exciting. So as a fermenter, I think one of my future goals, and somewhere I'd like to end up maybe one day, is producing a commercial product that I sell at the farmer's market, that I sell kind of commercially. And I've given away a lot of product, and I packaged product, and that was kind of the impetus for it. But that was a really fun process, and it's fun, picking containers and bottles and making a label and making that a special homemade product. And I really think there's a growing market for that artisan type of preserve or food product. And I think that by going through it, you can learn how to grow things yourself and increase the profit margins, how to be flexible, and how to deliver an actual product to a consumer base. So that's something that is down the road a little bit, but I'm definitely intrigued and interested in that whole journey as well. So I hope that you feel inspired to continue start your fermenting journey, your food preservation journey, and I wish you all the best. Thanks.